Vacation at Greens Mill Camp. Written by Donis Crane. Performed by Donis Crane. Chapter 1. Vacation at Greens Mill. For as long as I could remember, Mama and Daddy had a trailer that could be popped up into a camper tent. Many years our family used the pop-up tent on vacations. When the tent was opened up, there were 2 large beds, one at each end, and a small table with 2 bench seats on either side. The table could be lowered between the bench seats, and that made another small bed. There was a small, butane-burning stove in the camper and a little sink where Mama could fix meals and wash dishes. The tent was tall enough that even Daddy could stand up straight in the middle of it. Daddy kept the trailer parked in back of our house and next to the alley. One summer evening when I was 13 years old, Daddy said, "I've got a week's vacation from work. Tomorrow we'll load up and go to Greens Mill." Greens Mill was a quiet little fishing campground just off J Road in Camden County, Missouri. It lay in a peaceful, quiet valley full of big shade trees and had rolling hills that were covered with soft grasses. "Yay!" I yelled. I was excited. I loved going camping at Greens Mill. Tommy and Lonetta hopped around the dining room and into the living room, hollering and yelling. They were excited too. "Calm down, kids," Mama said. "We've got a lot of work to do before we can take off. In the morning, you kids dress in your old play clothes." "Okay, Mama," we chorused. The next morning it was still dark out when Daddy hollered up the stairs. "Tommy, get up. You need to help me hook up the camper. You girls shake a leg. You need to help Mommy get things packed. Hurry now. We need to get started before old Mr. Sun comes up and it gets hot." I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and jumped out of bed. I skipped down the stairs 2 at a time. I was ready to go. Phyllis was right behind me, and Lonetta was behind Phyllis. Tommy stayed in bed and pulled the blankets over his head. Daddy yelled, "Come on, sleepyhead, fun's a-waitin'." Tommy groaned and got up. Out in the backyard, Daddy hitched the trailer onto the back of the Ford station wagon. He drove the car and camper around to the front of the house and backed into the driveway. He unhitched the camper from the station wagon and moved the car to the street, leaving the camper in the driveway. Tommy helped him open the pop-up tent. They went around the house to the shed, and Daddy grabbed his tackle box to load into the camper. "Tommy, grab the fishing poles," he said. They stored the fishing poles inside the bench seats of the tent and tossed in all of the life jackets. Tommy made sure they didn't forget to load the paddles. He knew they would be needed if the boat motor ever failed to start. "Daddy, am I big enough to row the boat in the river this year?" Tommy asked. "I like to splash over to that little island and play pirates. You let Donis do it last year. I'm almost as big as she is. Can I, Daddy? Huh, Daddy? Can I?" "We'll see, Tommy," Daddy said. In the house, Mama was very busy and seemed to be everywhere at once. She was in the kitchen packing the food and also making sure we kids packed the family's clothes, including plenty of shorts and T-shirts and our old school shoes. We would need those old shoes to go swimming. The bottom of the Lake of the Ozarks, near the shore, was rocky. After a quick breakfast of cereal and milk for everyone, Phyllis washed up the bowls and spoons. Mama was ready to get started. "Okay now, Phyllis, grab all the pillows and blankets off everyone's bed and take them to the car. Lonetta, please feed baby Rusty with smaller bites. Marla, would you please move out of the way? Donis, where are you? Get a move on. We need to get going before sunup. It will be hot today, kids. Did you all pack your swimsuits?" Mama seemed to be everywhere at once. Through the flurry of activity, Mama stayed calm. There were lots of things to do, but she was looking forward to this camping trip because she knew she would see her sisters in Missouri sometime during the week. Mama packed cardboard boxes full of food to take with us. She packed in potatoes and onions, flour and cornmeal, coffee, sugar, and pork and beans, boxes of crackers, loaves of bread, Crisco, salt and pepper, ginger snap cookies and graham crackers, Cheez-It crackers, marshmallows, tea bags, and Kool-Aid packets. As I watched, it all went into cardboard boxes. I knew that Mama would cook good meals over the fire at the campsite. I grabbed a jar of pickled pig's feet out of the cabinets. I didn't like them, and I could not stand the idea of eating the feet of pigs. But I knew Daddy really liked them. "Don't forget to take these. Daddy will be happy," I said to Mama. Mama took the jar and put it in one of the cardboard boxes. "Thank you, honey. Daddy will appreciate them," Mama said. "Now go to the attic, Donis. Get the wooden picnic basket." The woven wood basket had plastic plates, bowls, and eating utensils in it. I did as I was told. Even though it was cobwebby in the attic above the garage, I wasn't afraid. Phyllis and Lynette and I liked to play pretend grown-up with our dolls in the attic. Mama put in the red and white checkered picnic tablecloth and added in a couple of sharp paring knives and a can opener. Everything that would fit went into the picnic basket. The rest was stored in the cardboard boxes. Daddy came into the house every time she had a box full and lugged it out and put it onto the floor of the camper. The boxes were too heavy for us kids to lift. When the picnic basket was full, it went into the camper. We needed ice for a week. For several weeks before the vacation, Mama had kept all of her bread bags as we ate the bread. Once the water in the ice cube trays in the freezer had turned to ice, she emptied the ice into one of the bread bags. She kept the plastic bread bags with the cubes in the freezer too. Then she would refill the ice trays and put them back in the freezer to freeze again. When the ice was frozen once again in the trays, she emptied the cubes into a bread bag. She kept repeating this process. She froze more and more ice until she had 10 bread bags full of frozen ice cubes. The morning of our trip, Mama loaded the bottom of a styrofoam cooler with bacon, sausages, eggs and ham slices, oleomargarine and bologna and cheese, and milk. She dumped ice cubes all over the food that needed to be kept cold. Daddy put this cooler onto the floor of the camper. He placed the 10 extra bags of ice down around the cooler and threw a heavy blanket over it all. The blanket kept everything cold around the styrofoam. The cooler was the last thing Daddy put into the camper. Daddy and Tommy lowered the sides of the tent, protecting what was in it from the wind as we drove down the road. "Well, Max, I think we've got everything, and what we don't have we'll always wish we did." I didn't know exactly what that meant, but Mama always said it whenever we were leaving on a vacation trip. We headed out early that morning just as the sun was coming up. Daddy drove toward the sun. The windows were all rolled down in the station wagon because it was already getting hot outside. Daddy teased, "See, kids, we don't need air conditioning. We've got a big 455. I knew he meant 4 windows rolled down and a car going 55 miles an hour. Daddy said silly things sometimes. Mama and Daddy were happy. They kept smiling at each other. Daddy reached over and patted Mama's shoulder every so often. Baby Rusty slept comfortably in the front seat on a blanket spread between Mama and Daddy. We kids could hardly wait to get to Greens Mill Camp because we could play and swim and fish all day. We would sleep in the camper tent at night. After about 2 hours of traveling down the highway, I asked Daddy, "How many more towns are there before we get there?" Daddy was patient at first and said, "Just sit back and watch out the window, Donis. We'll be there soon." Another 30 minutes went by. It wasn't too hot in the car because the 455 kept us fairly cool, just like Daddy had said. And it was still only about 10 o'clock. But we kids were getting tired of trying to sit still and being good. Tommy whined, "How much longer, Daddy?" Daddy, a little less patiently, said, "It will be a little while, Tommy. Just sit back and think of something else. Why don't you play a game or something?" For a while, we entertained ourselves playing counting silos. Farmers had silos on their land to store grain for their animals. A silo was a tall, round structure made of concrete blocks. The sizes and number of silos varied depending on how big the farm was and how many animals the farmer had to feed. Sometimes they were 10 to 12 feet in diameter and 90 to 100 feet high. The silos were built close to the farmer's barn and could easily be seen from the road. We took different sides of the highway. Phyllis and I watched out the windows on Daddy's side, and Lonetta and Tommy counted the silos on Mama's side of the car. When anyone spotted a silo, he or she would yell, "I spy one!" Then we'd start looking down the road for one more. Each group of silos counted one, even if there was more than one silo in that group. They still only got to count one. The shorter metal silos did not count for our game. Tommy kept trying to argue that they did, but the girls said no. Mama helped us spot silos. We passed the time away for a little while counting silos. Before long, though, we got tired of the game. I thought Mama was favoring and helping Lonetta and Tommy a little too much, but of course she wasn't. Like everyone else, Phyllis was hot and she was getting cranky. She was getting tired of this game and getting tired of playing with her little brother and sisters. She was tired of Marla crawling over her to get into the front with Daddy and Mama, and then crawling back into the second seat where Phyllis was. Phyllis complained, "We'll never get there." Mama and Daddy were losing their patience. They were 2 adults and 6 kids crowded inside the car. We were all hot. "Hey, Daddy, I sure wish we had a big 490 on this long, hot ride." Daddy chuckled at my joke. Mama scolded Phyllis, "Just be patient. We'll get there." After a few hours, and after one of us had asked how far it was many, many times, Daddy lost his temper. "We will get there when we get there, and not a minute sooner. Now be quiet and let me drive," he said sternly. Mom and Daddy usually preferred to drive their vacation trips at night. Us kids would go to sleep after dark. The trip would be much more peaceful. But on this trip, they had to load up for a camping vacation, and they were pulling a trailer, so they chose to travel daytime hours. We traveled all day and finally got to the campground about 3 o'clock that afternoon. We all barreled out of the station wagon as soon as Daddy pulled it up beside the campsite. Everybody was excited for our vacation adventures to begin. Tommy ran down to the dock. I was close on his heels. Daddy yelled, "You kids, get back here. We've got work to do." We trudged our way back up the hill, grumbling. It wouldn't take long to unload the camper tent, and then we'd be off on our week's adventure of camping, fishing, swimming, and hiking.